The Montgomery bus boycott of 1955 began when Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a city bus so that a white person could sit down. After she was arrested, the black community rose in protests, led by Martin Luther King Jr. King, who was 26 at the time, took inspiration from the writings of Mahatma Gandhi, who used nonviolent protest to end the British rule over colonial India. He borrowed Gandhi's idea of mass demonstrations, boycotts, and breaking discriminatory laws. These concepts are known as civil disobedience. King said, "Nonviolent direct action ceased to create such a crisis and foster such a tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue, the kind of tension in society that will help men rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to majestic heights of understanding and brotherhood." The lack of black ridership caused severe financial losses for the bus company, who finally negotiated with the boycott's leaders. King used the momentum created by the bus boycott to fuel other protests within the rights movement. On December 5, 1955, boycotters assembled in the Holt Street Baptist Church to discuss continuing the boycott, which lasted until December 1956. They walked and relied on volunteer drivers to get them where they needed to go. This caused revolts from white citizens' councils and the Ku Klux Klan, who threw bombs at the houses of organizers. The Supreme Court decision to integrate the buses ends the boycott.
As President Lyndon Johnson said in 1965, "You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say you are free to compete with all the others, and still just believe that you have been completely fair." Affirmative action helped create equal opportunities for blacks and whites in areas such as employment and higher education. The concept of affirmative action was born on June 25, 1941, when President Franklin Roosevelt, seeking to avert a march on Washington organized by civil rights pioneer A. Philip Randolph, issued Executive Order 8802 requiring defense contractors to pledge non-discrimination in employment and government-funded projects. Successive presidents, under the pressure from the African American community and civil rights advocates, continued the effort to increase minority employment opportunities and end job discrimination. Affirmative action itself has been defined as any measure beyond simple termination of a discriminatory practice, adopted to correct or compensate for past or present discrimination to prevent discrimination from recurring in the future. In 1965, however, only 5% of undergraduate students, 1% of law students, and 2% of medical students in the country were African Americans. Therefore, the government felt that the colleges and universities needed to have more diversity, and so they began to adopt recruitment policies for African and Latino students. The attendance of these African and Latino students increased steadily.
The Kerner report was in response to riots that resulted from black economic frustration. It called whites out on their racism and cited it as a cause for the riots. It also called for an end to de facto segregation. Some quotes on the Commission's suggestions include, "Unless there are sharp changes in the factors influencing Negro settlement patterns within metropolitan areas, there is little doubt that the trend toward Negro majorities will continue. Providing employment for the swelling Negro ghetto population will require opening suburban residential areas to Negroes and encouraging them to move closer to industrial centers." Millennium Breach found that 10 years later, the racial divide was growing. In 1998, Harvard lecturer noted that if white racism was the cause, why did riots break out in the northern cities and not in the far more racist southern cities? And why didn't riots break out in the far more racist and economically depressed 30s?